him a big round of applause.
I am like running. Was I meant to turn it on?
Let me see, see? Yeah, fine.
Alright, okay, 1, 2, there we go. Okay, cool. Guys, thanks for leaning in. That was the one thing I asked, and it's the one thing that you've done. So really appreciate it. We've just got what would normally be the final stretch, which is the part where you just kind of say, okay, let me try and concentrate for this last bit. But it's not going to be too hard. Because we've got Barry Mitchell. Barry leads Uncovering Greatness. That's the organization he founded and leads, and is an incredible communicator, and really has trained many people across entrepreneurs, business people in South Africa, across Africa, in different parts of the world, and just has a unique way of communicating and helping us with what I think is a really big thing for us, which is just the mindset. And what our mindset is as we go into the challenges that we have. And so, Barry, it's a pleasure to have you and your team from Uncovering Greatness here. Over to you. Thanks.
So good afternoon. Come on, you guys can do better than that. Good afternoon. You know, I'm watching him on stage, and there's a saying that we have in our world. It's called highest energy wins. Highest energy wins. Highest energy what? Wins. Highest energy what? Wins. Highest energy wins. Anyone have a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old in their house right now? Anyone have little kids in their house? Anyone remember having little kids in their house? Anyone older than remembering, and now you have big kids that have little kids? Okay, but how many of you realize that a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, when they want something done, they win? Because their energy is much higher than yours. You tell them that tomorrow I'm going to take you somewhere, and they don't understand what tomorrow is. When they wake up at 5, you met 9. And at 5 it's let's go, and you go not now, and they go yes now. So one of the things I've learned in the years that I've been in the game of helping people move is energy. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. Is that okay? The first thing is, Sito, thank you for giving me the honor to come and speak to you guys here. You know, I'm standing at the back and I'm looking at this thing that says 30 years. 30 years in business. There's a global statistic that says the average business will fail, not might. 80% to 90% of all businesses will fail in 5 to 8 years. You have a 5% chance of going past that. That's why being an entrepreneur is so tough. I come out of the world, I'm an entrepreneur. Started my first business when I was 16. It got shut down within a year. Well, I started it, I went to boarding school. And I figured when I was at boarding school, there were kids that needed things that their parents wouldn't give them money for. So I started a little business supplying money to kids so that they could buy things that their parents wouldn't give them money for, so that I could make money to buy things that my parents wouldn't give me money for. It was a very lucrative business. It ran at 65% to term. Until the government found out. The government just happened to be who? My housemaster and my headmaster. And I was told, you either stop your business or you leave the school. I was like, this is a bit unfair. And they said to me, you've come to school to learn how to make money. I was like, I'm making money. And that was my start of my journey into business. So, yeah, it's a real honor. So I said, Sito, thank you for asking me to come here. It's a real honor to spend the next hour or so with you and to be in an organization that I look at in South African and African terms as an organization that plays right at the top of the pile. The problem with that is when you're at the top, everybody else is coming after you. The problem is when you're at the bottom, you're going after everyone at the top. And that's the game. So my question is this: how are you going to protect 30 years of growth and create more growth? And that's going to require change. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about change today. Is that okay? how to navigate change. Not only how to navigate change in your business, but how to navigate change in your life. How to navigate change with your teams and how to get your teams to be able to navigate change. So, how many of you want more out of life? How many of you want a lot more out of life? How many of you are doing okay? You're pretty comfortable and you want to help other people get more out of life. So, the first question is, what is it that you want to have? Are you clear on what you want to have? Are you clear on what the next steps are? In your business, I sat at the back. Sadly, I got the last bit of what you guys were talking about in terms of where you're at. Now, in the world, I must say, in the world that I come from, I'm listening to you go, we don't have a problem with funding. We spend 11 billion a year. I'm going, in the world I come from, we have a big problem with funding. We have to manage what we spend because no one will give us any money unless we learn how to sell. So different worlds. Does that make sense? But the reality is what is it that you want to have? Whatever that is, the first thing is are you clear on what you want to have? Are you very clear on what you want to have? How many of you have goals in your life? How many of you have some goals? How many of you don't have goals, by the way? And I ask that question because a lot of people don't have goals. You've given up having goals. Because you got to the stage where it's just like, well, I set goals and they don't happen, so I'll just do what I have to do, and hopefully next week will come and the week after that. And I don't know, suddenly you wake up and you go, oh crap, I'm 50 years old and I've just been doing what I do because that's what I do. So goals. So put up your hand if you have some goals, please. Okay, keep your hand up if those goals are written down. If they're not written down, they're not goals, they're fantasies. Last time I looked at my 53 years of existence, fantasies don't really come true. So goals, the first step is write them down. The second step is, if they're written down, how many of you have them for longer than 3 years? Put up your hand if you have goals written down for longer than 3 years. What about longer than 5 years? Longer than 10 years? There's only about 6 or 7 of you planning on living for 10 years. So most people are saying, I want to have, but the reality is, what I hear from most people is not what I want to have, it's what I don't want to have right now. We're going into elections. Most people are talking about what I don't want to have. The question is, what do you want to have? And in order to have, in order to change your life, in order to get growth, whatever that is for you, to move from wherever you are right now, the second step is, what is it that you need to? What is it that you need to do? Now, this sounds pretty simple, because it is. What do you need to do? I'm going to hazard a guess that most of you in the audience here, within your jobs, within your frame of reference, within what you do in the business, you know what to do. Now my question is, how many of you know exactly what you want to have, or you have an idea of what you want to have, you know what you want to do, but you can't do it? Anyone in that place? Anyone? I'll put it back. I've been in the world of health and fitness for a long time. Okay, in some of my terms it's not health and fitness, it's been health and fatness. Okay, in my 53 years of existence, I've gone from fit to fat to fit to fat to fit to fat. Okay, people that know me and have known me for a while can often say to me, hey dude, last time I saw you 2 years ago, you were like this, now you're like this, what happened? And they'll see me 2 years later. But it's something I've consistently worked on. But what I realized is that it's not rocket science to know what to do. If anyone in this room needs to lose weight, there's enough information in the world that can tell you how to do it, yes? The question is, why aren't you doing it? Why? So one of the words is this, it's discipline. Why else? Because the reality is on the journey from where you are right now to where you're going, you're going to face obstacles. With people and organizations, one of the biggest mistakes I see right now is most people are focused on this. This is called developing what people need to do. And that's important because that's skills. Skills are important. The problem is most people are focusing on skills. How many of you have highly skilled people that you've taught a lot that just aren't doing what you've taught them how to do? Anyone have that? If you have a team, you have a number of those type of people, yes? I've been in sales for 30 years, that's what I've done. I've led sales teams. The biggest sales team I led had 65 people in it. I taught all of them how to sell. There was a small percentage, probably about 20% of them, that were knocking it out the park. There was another percentage, maybe about 30 or 40%, that were doing okay, hitting their targets, and then there was a percentage at the bottom. Who's in sales in here? How many of you can connect with those type of numbers? Because those are the numbers, and you spend a lot of time teaching the people at the bottom, and you get frustrated because they're not doing it. Anyone getting frustrated? Anyone getting frustrated with yourself? Yes? You're frustrated with yourself. You're frustrated with your teams because you know what to do. The real thing is, though, is it's not what you want to do, it's who you need to be. And what is the state of being? What is the state of being? What does that word be mean? Part of it's identity. So I've spent the last 18 years, I had this business, Uncovering Greatness, for the past 18 years. I launched it 18 years ago, and I've spent 18 years really working with people to help people change. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist. In fact, most people would term me as uneducated. I'm an entrepreneur. I have 0 pieces of paper to my name. Nothing. But I'm probably one of the most studied people when it comes to business. This year alone, I've studied, not read, studied 7 books around business, entrepreneurship, money, sales, and mindset. But part of studying is not just knowing the skill, I apply it. I've walked that journey. Does that make sense? And my constant question is, who do I need to? Who do I need to be? And then the question is, what is being? What does it mean to be? A lot of people know what to do. I go into sales teams and people say to me, yes, but I've been in sales 20 years. I know what to do. I go, great. They say, have you heard the 5 Ps, the 4 Cs, the 3 Gs, and everything else that they throw at me? And sometimes I go, no. And then they look at me as though I'm uneducated. And then I ask them a very simple question. How big is your bank account right now? And I don't say that arrogantly, but the question is, you see, sales, it directly results in money. It's the single highest performing profession on the planet. Let me say that again. Sales is the highest paid profession on the planet, largely undertaken by people who are broke. Because most people are not working on who they need to be a great salesman. Because when you get out and sell, it gets tough. You see, because the journey from here to here is not just about doing. Because the real problem is when you go out to do it, guess what gets turned on? Heat and pressure. How many of you right now are facing some heat and pressure? Heat and pressure in your life, heat and pressure in your business. I love the question. I don't want to shoot a rocket at you. What was it? I hope this is not a loaded gun or a bullet. I'm sitting at the back going, guys, that's life. You get it? That's life. People are going to shoot bullets at you. It's coming, whether you like it or not. So the question is what are you doing to work on this? Not what information are you getting to understand what this is, but what are you working on to do this? I had the opportunity of working with some of you might have heard of a guy called Robert Kiyosaki. Anyone ever heard of Robert Kiyosaki? You might have heard of a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I first met Robert 18 years ago, and I asked him a question when I first met him. I said, Robert, what is the secret to your success? What's the one thing? I met him, I got to interview him, flew to Phoenix, Arizona, sat in a boardroom with him, interviewed him to a live program that we were running in South Africa. And before we were chatting, I said, what's your secret to your success? And this is what, this stayed with me and has been with me for 18 years. What he didn't say is, he didn't say, Barry, I'm Japanese American and you're an African. He didn't say, Barry, I have 2 degrees and you have none. He didn't say, Barry, I grew up in a rich family and you didn't, or I grew up in a poor family and you didn't. He didn't say, Barry, I'm good looking and you're not. He didn't say, Barry, I got hair and you're bald. He didn't say, I grew up in the family of an entrepreneur and you didn't. He didn't say, most of the things, how many of you realize that most people attribute to why they don't have, can't have, or do have? What he said is this. He said, Barry, it's very simple. I can overcome a much bigger little voice than you. I can overcome a much bigger little voice than you. Because I've spent more time, effort, energy, and money working on me than you have on yourself. How many of you have a little voice? Come on, how many of you have a little voice? How many of you are sitting there wanting to put up your hand, have a little voice? That little voice that says, when is this guy going to stop getting us to put his hand up? Yes? I got it. You see, it's not my little voice, it's your little voice. That little voice when your ex-coach is presenting to you that's going, yeah, well, that's what they said last year, and how am I going to do that this year? Yes, that little voice that your teams that you're leading are saying the same thing. That little voice that either sells you on a reason you can or sells you on a reason you can't. Sells you on a reason you will or sells you on a reason you won't. Sells you on a reason you should or sells you on a reason you shouldn't. That little voice. And that little voice is the single biggest sale we have to make in life. You see, we're moving into what many would deem a crucial time in our life and business, in the country. And there are lots of little voices. I just know this. There's absolutely nothing I can do about the 29th. No, absolutely nothing. The only thing that I can do is do what I need to do about me and what I'm doing in my business, in my world, with the people that I'm doing, how I'm doing it, who I'm doing it with, and what difference I'm making or not making. Sadly, I can't vote in this country, but if I could, I'd go cast my vote. And that's great, but the reality is I'd have my peace, but there's, how many of you get it? I have absolutely no control. But on Wednesday morning, I can get on a plane, I fly to Zoom, I go work with a client. That's what I have control in. The fact that I can get on a plane, that I can go to Zoom, that I can work with the client, that I can do some training. The fact that on Thursday morning, I'm going to have some appointments with some potential new clients. Does that make sense? That's the doing. So in this journey from where you want to go, that's what Kiyosaki said to me. He said, Barry, the bigger the little voice you can overcome, the bigger the game of life you can play. You know, I'm fascinated about American politics. Why? Because I watch human behavior. Like him, don't like him, agree with him, disagree with him. Doesn't really matter. That dude can play a huge game. You all know who I'm talking about. It's not the doddery old guy that's about to fall off the stage. Okay, it's the guy that whether you think he's obnoxious, a narcissist, good, bad, doesn't really matter. The guy that can handle more heat than anyone else at the moment. Agree with what he says, don't agree with what he says, doesn't really matter. Why? Because there's people that agree with you and people that don't agree with you. The question is, when he's standing up for what he's going for, what he wants to have, what he wants to achieve, whatever that is, he's standing in the heat. They're not shooting one bullet at him. You get that? People say he's stupid. I go, maybe. But he can stand at heat and pressure. Is this making sense? Yes? You see, I see there's 4 types of people in the world. How many? 4 types of people. Now, the question I'm going to ask you is, where do you sit? You see, the first type of person are people like this. Smart, stupid people. And then we have the stupid, smart people. And then we have the smart, smart people. And we have the stupid, stupid people. Okay, 4 types of people. Okay, I can give you a whole lot of anecdotal evidence and all that sort of stuff and give you manuals if that's really what you want, but how many of you agree that those are the type of people you have in the world? So what's the smart, stupid type? The smart, stupid type is the type that understands a lot of information, has a lot of information, comes into this place, they have high IQs, they know exactly what to do. So in other words, their level of intelligence when it comes to this thing called mental is very high. And when it comes to physical, they can tell you exactly what they do and how to do it and exactly how it works. And then you say, go do it. And you turn up a little bit of heat and pressure and what happens? And they can't think. They freeze. And then they'll justify why they couldn't do it because they know what you don't know. And you go, just go do it. No, but you know that I had to study this and learn this and do that. And guess where they stay? Stay exactly where they stay. Very smart. And then you have the stupid smart people. Those are the people that some of you may remember that when they were 16 sat at the back of the class. And when the teacher had enough of them, he moved them to the front of the class. Not because they were model students, because that was the best place to friggin' keep them when they weren't modeling what they should have been modeling. And everyone said, those oaks are dwarf. They're never going to amount to anything. And as soon as they got out of school, they went and did stuff that most people were too scared to do. And today, those are some of the people that you're looking going, how the heck did that dwarf dude make so much friggin' money? Yes? Because you know why? Because when they left school, they didn't have a piece of paper that said they're clever. They had nothing. They had to walk into people's offices and say, I have an idea too. They had to learn how to sell, learn how to communicate, learn how to have the right level of energy, learn how to get through the heat and pressure of everyone telling them they're never going to amount to anything. And along the way, what they did is because they got out, they started growing. And they started increasing their being. Started increasing what many of you will know. You might even have been on some courses. Started increasing this thing called EQ, emotional intelligence. In simple terms, when the shit hits the fan, can you stand and get through it? When the emotion goes up, can you keep your intelligence up? Because for most people, when emotion goes up, intelligence goes. When emotion goes up, intelligence goes down. Anyone ever said something in the heat of the argument that as it was coming out of your mouth, you're like, oh, God. Anyone done that? Okay, I'm just going to ask, anyone married? Okay, if you're married, you've done that. Okay, yes? And then she said, why did you say that? I didn't mean it. You did because you said it. I promise I didn't mean it. Okay, but you're not bold enough to say I was stupid. But you get that? So what happens with some of these guys, they know a whole lot of stuff, but they don't know this, so they go find it. And they work on EQ, emotional intelligence. This is emotion. This is an interesting fact. 90% of all high performers have high EQ. 90% of all high performers have high EQ. But those 90% don't all have high IQ. The world tells us is how much information you can store in here. I often ask, why the heck do I need to remember this stuff? I can index it. No, you have to remember it. I was told when I was at university that I was a cheat. I said, that's not cheating, that's teamwork. And then guess what? I suddenly arrived in the corporate world and they told me work on a team. I'm like, how do you mean work on a team? I can't do what he does, that's cheating. No, you've got to work as a... You want a little voice? You take kids through 12 years of school. In my world, you sentence them for 12 years. 12 years through school, you tell them, do it by yourself, do it by yourself, do it by yourself, do it by yourself, do it by yourself. Oh, now come play on a team. They know lots of stuff, but they haven't been working on this. Does that make sense? The other part of this is this. It's called SQ. And SQ stands for spirit. That thing that we can't quantify that sits in here. That when I read your mission statement, that's your mission statement. Yes, allow connecting for a better future. That's a mission. That's not a head thing. That's something here. When I stood at the back and I'm listening to that, I'm going, wow, what difference will it make in this continent? You see, mission purpose is spirit. But most people are stuck in their head about it. It's spirit. The biggest thing that's driven me in my training business is I have a mission to make a significant positive impact on the entrepreneurial and business landscape of Africa. Why? Because I'm an African. Simple. That's where I was born. I spend all my time in Saturday. Your roaming on Vodacom is friggin' amazing. Last year, I did 56 flights. I was on a plane 56 times last year. There was not one single time where I landed anywhere in the SADC countries and could not use my phone. That's my mission. Why? Because I believe we live on the most amazing continent in the world that has the most amazing resources with the most scarce mindset. Not access to opportunities, not access to anything, access to scarce mindsets. When you change how people are, when you change who people are being and who they need to be, they will find what they need to do. When you focus too much on what you need to do, you stunt who you need to be. When you put both things together and you work on increasing your level of skill, becoming better at what you do, practicing what you do, most of it's simple. And you put these things together and you work on becoming a bigger being, a bigger person, handling more emotion, playing the game for a bigger reason. That's what smart people do. Can IQ be changed? It's inflexible. IQ is inflexible. You're born with your IQ. That is what you have. You can learn more information and that sort of stuff, but IQ is inflexible. Can personality be changed? Personality is inflexible. If you're an introvert, you're an introvert. You can learn to get through your little voice, to be a bit more extrovert, but your personality is your personality. I am an introvert. Most people do not believe I'm an introvert because this is what I do for a living. 18 years ago, my single biggest fear was speaking in public to strangers. I've been in sales for 30 years. I can walk in, knock on doors, speak to one person, two people, no problem. You put me in front of a group of people looking at me like this, like, who's this dude? It scared the crap out of me. That little voice went mad. The heat and pressure went absolutely ballistic. How many of you know what I'm talking about? How many of you in this room, if I came through the audience and said, in fact, maybe I'll do that, I'm going to choose 2 or 3 of you and bring you up to do something with me. Who should I choose? Oh, now we have a little voice. You got it? See, that little voice is real? Some of you are going, pick me, pick me, pick me. I don't want to pick you because you'll come up and woo-hoo. You get it? Some of you are like, oh crap, let me sing, let me go a little bit lower. Dude, sit up. See, they can't see me, I get lower. Little voice. But you know how to speak, yes? You have the skills. You can articulate, you can talk. See, that's being. So when you work on this, you grow your EQ. First step, are you aware? Are you aware of how you are when you're doing what you're doing? In my experience, most people are unaware. They say things like, that's just me. Okay, good, be you then. Anyone ever had that in your team? Dude, you know what? Some of the people in the team don't really like how you do. Well, that's me. They don't like me then. Okay, good. And guess what? Let's see how quickly we can get me out the door so they can go work for someone else. And then when they move out the door, work for someone else, they blame everybody else. It wasn't me, it was them. No. How many of you know what I'm talking about? How many of you know people like that? Come on, how many of you know people like that? How many of you have people in your departments like that? In your divisions like that? Yes? Some of you are not going to put up your hand. I'm not that. My team is wonderful. None of my team do that, especially the Esther. They're not going to do that. It's like, oh crap. How many of you know people like that intimately? And at times sitting in the same chair as you. Yes? Because we all play those games. Most people are not honest. It's everybody else's fault. It's not mine. Is this making sense? So the first step is, what are you doing to work on your little voice? What are you doing to grow you? The bigger the game in life you want to play, the bigger the little voice you've got to be able to become, the bigger the heat and pressure you have to be able to get over. That that journey that I went on meeting Robert Kiyosaki 18 years ago culminated in me starting to work with him in 2017. I worked with one of his partners, a guy called Blair Singer, and I got invited to a course in the States, which I went to, and a very small course. It was called the Rich Dad Book Study, and for 3 days, Robert taught 30 of us a whole lot of stuff. How many of you wouldn't mind being in a room with a guy like that? Okay, let me tell you the wealth that a guy like that's created. He owns over 7,000 property units. Okay, notice you don't see him on Facebook saying, look at me, look how much I have. Very, very, very wealthy guy. But he's tough. Very tough. And I end up working with him, and he says, I'm sitting in this room, and he says, where's Barry? And I stand up, and he's been talking about this program that he wants to create, and he says, you going to champion the program? I'm like, what friggin' program? I didn't say that. My little voice goes, what friggin' program? In that moment, I had to make a decision. I had a choice. There were 2 answers that could come out of my mouth. What were they? Yes or? Yes or? I couldn't put up my hand and say, hey, Robert, yeah, I understand, but tell me, what's the remuneration structure? How long is it going to work? Da, da, da. You know what I would have said? Sit down. Anyone else want to do it? You get it? You see, they would have been little boys, because that's what people do. I said 100%, and I went, oh, cock. And that took me on a journey working with him for the next 3 years. People were like, you're so lucky to work with Robert. I'm like, sure I am. End up standing on a stage with him in Thailand. And I have my wife and my two daughters with me. And I said something, and for the next 15 minutes, he just berated me on stage. It's not nice. Life's not nice, folks. You get that? Life's not nice. The market's not nice. You see, most people want to create the have as long as it's easy. As long as it's easy. I'm going to tell you, you guys haven't got to 30 years in business because it's been easy. You got to 30 years in business because it's been damn frigging hard. And you want to get to another 30 years? And I don't say this because I want to deaden your spirits, but the deal is because that's the journey of life. Life is hard. As Jordan Peterson said, life is a struggle. If you don't think it's a struggle, and you haven't had a struggle in the last 5 years, be careful because it's coming. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I can tell you that's 20 years of friggin' struggle. Hit 2019, we thought, that is it. I spent 3 years working with Kiyosaki, got my business model going, just done a deal with Coca-Cola, taken 90 entrepreneurs through an entrepreneurial development program. In that program, we helped those 90 entrepreneurs create 127 million rand in new business, created 307 new jobs, and I was like, here we go. Cash flow started coming in, sadly not 11 billion, but close for me. Cash flow started coming in, I went, I'm going to get my own venue. So we built our own venue in Joburg. 50-seater venue. Cost of 55, 60,000 rand a month plus some staff. Launched it in end of October, November 2019. Good decision in December. Good decision in January 2020. Even better decision in February. And then guess what happened? COVID came. My whole business model went. I couldn't teach. People say, go online. I don't teach online. This is my skill. Does that make sense? My skill, the longer I teach for, is I connect with people. But I had to. I went online. Heat and pressure was turned up. Our business collapsed. We wouldn't have survived if I hadn't. I know this. If I hadn't worked with Kiyosaki, not what he taught me around skill, but how tough he friggin' made it for me on stage. I walked off a stage in Mexico City. When I got to the event in Mexico City, there were 2 other trainers that I worked with. One guy was from the States, the other guy was from Thailand, and they were laughing at me. And I'm like, what's going on, dudes? And one of them said, we are so glad that you work with him and not us. I was like, why? No, don't worry about it, dude. And you know when someone says, don't worry about it, dude, you're going, oh crap. I get on stage, same thing again. Get pounded for 10 minutes. I walk off and they're going, so glad it's you. Well, guess what? That pounding prepared me for COVID. No one asks permission, folks. The bigger the game you want to play, it's coming. Okay, but failure is not only pounding, success is pounding as well. Being able to handle success is just as difficult as being able to handle failure. Because it's mindset. Does that make sense? Any questions? Is this helping you? My challenge is, what are you doing to work on this? The bigger the game in life you want to play, the bigger the mindset you have to have. The bigger the little voice you have to get over. The bigger the heat and pressure you have to handle. I worked with a particular South African organization, fairly big organization. Did a couple of billion rand a year turnover. Had a CEO that was very tough. And I can remember sitting with one of his exco team, and they said to me, yeah, but I know more than him. I said, I hope you do. Because if you don't, he's not doing his job. Because if he's hiring people that know less than him, he's protecting himself. He's not doing his job. You should know more than him. Because you always want to hire people that know things that you don't want. And he looked at me. I said, but my question is, can you be more than him? When the shit hits the fan, can you stand in that heat? And he looked at me. I said, you've just given me the answer. The answer is no. So when you learn on how big you can become, then you can have his position. And that's not only about CEO, that goes throughout any organization. Any organization. I've watched too many people get promoted based on skill and then fail. Why? Because they can't handle the heat and pressure. I watch people that go away, they get an MBA in management, come back and now I don't know how to manage, and then say, you better listen to me, now I'm the boss. And 6 months later, but they won't listen to me. And you have to. Oh, okay, I'll listen to you. Yes? And they tell the person, but I know more than you. But I've studied for longer than you. Okay. And they create chaos until they start working on this. See, success is not easy. It's damn hard. But I have learned this. It's very simple. It's very simple, and most people just complicate it. Where's the lady that asked the question around simplifying? She was at the back. You're over there. It was a great question, because most people are not thinking simple. The bigger your organization gets, you're an entrepreneur, you start a business, you go from 1 to 2, you've created complexity. You go from 2 to 4, it's more complexity. How many people do you have in this organization? You are unbelievably complex and complicated by the nature that you have so many people. The greatest gift you can give yourself is simplify. You work in a complex industry that's changing so fast. If you're not simplifying for your people, you're going to confuse them. And when you confuse them, the hard becomes very hard. Why? Because what you end up creating is this thing called chaos. Chaos is a natural order of things. It is the way it is. You will always face chaos. You launch a new product, you will find yourself in chaos. You take off an old product and take it off the market, you'll find yourself in chaos, yes? That doesn't matter what you do, you'll find chaos. But the more you can simplify things, the more you can manage chaos. The reason most people don't want change is because when change comes and we have to manage it, it creates little voices, yes? It creates heat and pressure. And there's not a person in this room doesn't know that change is just a part of life. But most people don't embrace it. They embrace it in their head, information-wise, but they don't embrace it in their being. I'm running an event on Saturday where Robin Kim Kiyosaki developed a game called Cash Flow 101, which is Monopoly on steroids. Anyone ever played Cash Flow 101? It's a financial literacy game that teaches you how to invest. It teaches you what the rich do to make money. Okay, it doesn't teach you what school teaches you. Okay, as an aside, how many of you have ever thought, go to school to learn how to make money, be taught by people who are largely broke? Doesn't figure in my world. Doesn't mean you can't make money, but so we're running this event. In order to run this event, I had to bring in 100 games, and we have a 2-week window to land the 100 games. Now I created a whole lot of heat and pressure for myself, because if the games don't land, I'm going to have to invent something else. Fortunately, they did land. Does that make sense? So we create chaos. So in order to navigate chaos, it's going to come from your mindset. How strong is your mindset? Are you working on a thing called mental toughness? The ability of any organization is dependent on its mental toughness. I can teach anyone skills. I can bring salespeople and I can teach them skills. I can walk into any sales team and give them a script. And then what? When the heat and pressure comes and they have to make 50 phone calls in order to close the deals, and they can't do that, why? Because they can't get through their little voice because the pressure is too much. How good are the skills? So I'll say that again. The opportunity on any organization is the ability for that organization to withstand heat and pressure. Both good and bad. Success and failure. And to be able to navigate chaos, because when you navigate chaos, you get on the journey to something that we call power. How many of you want more power in your life? None of you? I want to have a huge amount of power. You see, when I use the word power, how many of you have some little voices? And those little voices go to leadership and what people are doing with power. And then, yes? Power. Well, let me ask you the question, what's power? So I said the context, when I talk about power, what power is. See, now this is my age. Power is the ability to hold a position. Power is the ability to hold a position. Power is not the ability to abuse people. You can use it for abuse, but it's the ability to hold a position. I'm going to suggest that this company, this brand Cito, is in a position of power. The question is, can you utilize that power to hold your position? Power is the ability to take, maintain, and enhance a position. So to move from the powerful position you created in 30 years, to take it, to maintain it, and to enhance it. And from that position, direct a flow of force toward a specific intended outcome. So in other words, you have to know, first of all, where you are going to go. What do you want to have? If you don't know that, well, how do you know where to direct that force? The objectives of the two basic manifestations of power are: one, to attain objectives, and two, to deter or stop opposition. Does that make sense? Awareness, knowledge, and the ability to focus that power. So is it okay if I take you through what I call the power model? It's called the path to power. It doesn't matter where you sit. It doesn't matter where you are in your life. This exists. If you want, how many of you in that definition would like to become more powerful? Would like to be able to hold a stronger position? Would like to be able to be clear on what you want and be able to direct the force to be able to create what you want? Would like to be able to take your teams that you are leading, hold a stronger position with them and teach them to hold a stronger position? Who's in sales in here? Who drives sales in here? Sales team. Who's in the sales team? How many of you would like to teach your sales people how to hold a position? So there's a path to power. And the path to power starts here. It starts at a place called invisibility. Invisible. Where nobody knows you. You see, your brand's powerful as a brand. But if you bring on a new client who's never dealt with you before, they may know your brand, but in terms of your service, your connection, how you work for them, where do you sit? You're invisible. They do not know that they do not know that you do what you do. One of the biggest problems is people assume power. Do you know who we are? It's one of my favorite with powerful people, especially this one. Do you know who my dad is? Why? Did your mother never tell you? But you get that? That's the assumption of power. It's a dangerous place to be. It's like me walking in here saying, I've been teaching in South Africa, all around Africa, I've taught all around the world, I've had over 30,000 people, all of you should know who I am. Why the friggin' heck would you know me? Some of you know me. Some of you have been in a room with me maybe before, but I'm going to hazard a guess, will it be true, the majority of you have no idea who this dude is standing on the stage. So right up front, when I walk on stage, in your world, I'm absolutely invisible. You don't know that you, before I came in here, before I was introduced, you didn't know that you didn't know that you didn't know me. And you had no idea what I did. Does that make sense? Now I've been going for 30 odd minutes, you know that you know something about me, which means I'm starting to move from invisibility to a place called emergence. I'm starting to emerge. Some of you are connecting with me. Some of you are liking how I speak. Some of you are not liking how I speak. Some of you like my energy. Some of you don't like my energy. Some of you like some of it. That's okay. But I'm starting to emerge. Through emergence, I may get into chaos. Because I may say something that somebody doesn't like. Okay, that's chaos. Does that make sense? Is this true in your business? In South Africa, you sit up here. There are markets on the continent you're not playing in, yes? So when you go and launch there, if you assume you're in power, be very careful. Be very careful. It's a mistake that many South African businesses have made in Africa. A huge mistake. Do you know who we are and what we can do? Frankly, no, and I don't actually give a rat's. That's what people are thinking. But people come in a position of power. Do you know how big our business, and I'm not just talking about your business, I've seen it. I've played in the African market, that's what I've done for 30 years. Right now, the SADC market is looking at working amongst themselves so they don't have to deal with South Africa. That's my take. Walvis Bay is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. More stuff is going out of Walvis than it is for places like Zim and Zambia than it is coming out of Durban or coming into Durban. Does that make sense? So when you go into a new market, where are you? When you get promoted, people may know you in the business, but you've never managed people, you've never been in that position, you've never been in that division. To those people, who are you? In that new role, you are invisible. I watch salespeople get promoted to a sales manager and then think they're in charge. And guess what people know about them? They know that you were a sales rep like me. Oh dude, now you think you're going to come tell us what to do? We'll show you. But they don't say that to you. Because people think that now I have a title, guess what? I have power. So if you recognize that you're here, how do you get to emergence? Once you get to emergence, you will get into chaos. It's the nature of how it works. If you're not, you might get into chaos, you will get into chaos. You launch a new product, it goes really well, people start uptaking it, yes? And then what happens? You have the call is too big and you can't supply, and then there's problems. Where are you sitting? Chaos. It's a natural progression. Boy meets girl, starts dating. Invisibility, get to know each other, emergence, oh, this is fun. Great. Relationship starts going on, and boy says, yeah, well, you know, Saturday afternoons I play golf with my buddies. What? Well, I go to soccer. No, you don't. That's our shopping time. Serious? No. What have you just created? Chaos. Your ability to be able to manage chaos and negotiate through chaos will depend on how far that relationship goes, because if you can't navigate chaos, well, guess what? You're going to go back downwards, and when you go backwards, it's not emergence, it's emergency. That's the way it works. You go back downwards, now you're in trouble. It's emergency. You better fix it, because there's stuff that you have to fix now. Otherwise, if you don't fix it, guess where you're going? Invisibility, you're gone. Your mate's going, did you know that guy? Which guy? Never. Did you used to date him? No. Does that happen with companies? They don't negotiate it. It happens with athletes, sportsmen, relationships. You push through chaos. When you push through chaos, you get to this place called normal operations. In normal operations, things are ticking over. They go. You're starting to make good profit. At normal operations, you keep doing what got you there. You keep doing it. In your relationship, boy dates girl. If the deal is Saturday mornings I take you shopping, you take her shopping Saturday morning. You keep doing it. When your buddies go, hey dudes, come join on Saturday morning. Because if I do, I'm going to create chaos, and then I can't come to rugby or golf or cricket or soccer on a Saturday afternoon. Yes? Is that the same in business? Yes? Same in business. So you create normal operations. When you push through normal operations, you may get to a state called abundance. If you push through abundance, you get to power. That's the path to power. Can you be in a different stage at the same time? So some of you may know me, so I'm not emerging. Sita knows me. I'm not emerging with Sita. He's not thinking, who's this friggin' wacko dude that works with flip charts that someone invited to come on my stage. Okay? Some of you might be thinking, who's this wacko dude that he invited to come on my stage? Okay? Because I'm emerging. With Sita, I'm not emerging. Okay? Does that make sense? It's the same for any business, any relationship, any connection. So there's some key things that you need to do. When you're in invisible, the primary thing that you must do is you must serve. In my world, one of the things that I believe when it comes to sales, when it comes to business, one of the single most important traits when it comes to people is the ability of people to serve. How many of you get that most people in this world want to be served? How many of you are getting we're losing the art of serving? People talk about customer service. I'm like where? And then customer service people say, yeah, I'll serve them if you pay me more. That's not the game. How do you serve people? What do you do? So you get out, you serve. I started this training business 18 years ago. I wasn't into training. It wasn't what I wanted to do. Okay, no, it wasn't what I wanted to do. I ended up in the States, bought a franchise, had a dramatic change in my life. On a course that I was at, bought a franchise and went, oh crap. Now I have to learn how to teach and train, do something that scared the heck out of me, big little voices. So I came back. And I found I've been in sales, that's what I did. I was sales director for a company, and then I left that and started my own business. And I phoned some of my mates that own businesses, and I said, hey guys, I've just come back from the States, I've learned some really powerful things. I'm going to do a little free event, would you like to come? They're like, you? I said, yes, but there'll be free beers and pizza. Okay, we'll be there. Okay, I served, and then I spent 2 hours teaching them what I'd learned from the States. They didn't pay me. And they were like, dude, some of this is quite interesting actually. We didn't expect it from you, but anyway. You get that? So I started emerging. And then one of them actually said, you know what, but I think our MD, and they were partners in the business, I think our MD would be interested in what you teach. Why don't you come next week? And they gave me my first client. So you serve. And then I started emerging. And as I started emerging, I started having to manage my time. Because then I was billing clients, and I was doing some training, and then I realized that I was selling time, so when I was training here, I couldn't train there. And I found myself in chaos. But in order to get through emergence, there's a critical thing I had to do. And this is what most people don't do. I had to spend. Most people don't spend. I had to spend. I just started a business. I didn't have a lot of money. But I had to spend. What did I have to spend? Time, effort, energy, and money. What did I have to spend to do? I had to spend to promote. In other words, I had to get out and sell. Not market, sell. Connect with people, get in their world, speak to people, build connections, build relationships, spend a lot of time, effort, energy, and money. This is the same journey for someone who gets promoted. See what happens, you get promoted, people know you, maybe in the organization, you get promoted from within, you have a new position. Well, people might know you, you might be up here. And you suddenly take up this new position, immediately you go down here. What people do is they come up here and they immediately think that they have power. They assume power. Assuming power is dangerous. And the reason they assume power is because this nasty little thing gets in the way. And when you assume power, very quickly what you will find is you will find yourself back down here. It's the way it works. Who's in procurement in here? You know, who's in procurement? In procurement, you ever had someone come and sell to you and say, who's in procurement? I can solve your problems. And you're like, you didn't even ask me if we have friggin' problems. Yes? But they walk in and say, we deal with these guys, you're going to deal with us. You're like, who the heck are you? Is that true? That's what salespeople do. How can you assume power? Because you have power with somebody else. See, as a salesperson, you come in invisible. You don't know me. How can I help you? How can I serve? How do I connect with you? How do I find out what you want? You build a relationship, you start connecting. So you start spending, you spend to promote, you spend to sell. And then you'll move from emergence into chaos because suddenly you have some business, you have some customers, you've been pulled all over the place. It's like in your relationship. Now suddenly you have a team and you're having to deal with them. Okay? And you have some of the team that are doing their job and some of the team that are not. And you're moving all over the place and you're in chaos. So how do you get out of chaos? In order to get out of chaos, you have to stabilize. You've got to stabilize fast. How do you stabilize? You put systems and processes in place. You put systems and processes in place, you put rules in place, and you hold people accountable to the systems and processes. Does that make sense? You hold people accountable. You don't tell them about it. You hold them to it. Non-negotiable. This is how we do it. You want to drive a sales team? This is how we do it. This is our sales process. This is what you do. This is how you do it. If you do that, you'll take them out of chaos. You'll get into normal operations. When you get into normal operations, that's where profits start. That's where profits start in relationship. That's where the relationship starts growing. That's where profits start in business. That's where customers start coming to you. You're no longer going to them. And at normal ops, that's where you make sure your quality control is very clear and you have very, very strong management. This is the place that entrepreneurs must get out of the business. Okay, because this is the mistake entrepreneurs make. They get up there, they get bored, and they start stuffing up the systems. And that business goes all the way back down to, because they try to design new systems. Anyone ever experienced that? Work with someone who's a visionary or an entrepreneur and keeps messing up the stuff when you get it all nice? Anyone ever seen that? Creates chaos. So you pull out of it and you hold people